Started.
Thank you very much, Danica, and good morning, everybody. We are really pleased that we didn't have to scale those stools.
Yeah.
We've got some alternative seating, so...
Innovation.
Yeah, exactly. Nimble, agile. So welcome to this chat. We've got 30 minutes. We're going to do 20 minutes discussion, then 10 minutes of Q&A, so we'd love to get you involved. We're going to talk... It's staggering to think that the population in the world's population in 1999 was 6 billion. It's now 8 billion. So think about that. It's increased a third in 24 years, which is great, I guess. More consumers, more people to buy things, but obviously brings with it a lot of issues around sustainability. And we're going to talk about that with two fantastic brand leaders and an amazing agency leader to dig into what that means and how human potential is key to making great solutions for brands in that process. So let me introduce our panel. First up, we have Brianne Boles-Marshall, who's diverse media and strategic lead at GM. Hi, Brianne.
Good morning.
Kathleen Hall, who's the chief brand officer at Microsoft. And of course, Jacki Kelley, who's the CEO of Dentsu Americas and chief global client officer. So welcome, looking forward to a great discussion. So yeah, we're talking about that population growth. You've got to find a new value proposition, whether you're a brand or an agency supporting brands, to unlock growth and good, and big themes that can. So Brianne, let's start with you. How is your brand playing in this new era of human centricity?
Well, how are we not playing in it? At General Motors, we have a vision. We have a couple of visions. First, let me say, it's to be the most inclusive company in the world. So when you have 8 billion and counting, right? We've all been pretty busy growing that number, but we want to make sure that everybody feels welcome to the table when we talk about the future of transportation and how that impacts all of us. So that's the first thing. Secondly, we have a vision of what we call 000 in our halls, and that's 0 crashes, 0 emissions, and 0 congestion. And so that's all about keeping us safe. That's all about keeping us efficient. That's all about driving change in the way that we commute and that we keep everybody safe. Everybody wants to come home to their loved ones safely at the end of the day. And so our cause is to be able to do that as a leading automotive manufacturer globally.
Yeah, and you're mixing up technology there with electronic vehicles and
Oh, yes.
looking after the environment, and got some very ambitious targets. So,
Oh, yes.
Is there anything specific that regarding this topic that plays into that?
Yes, so driving an all-electric future is quite a pivot for a 100-plus-year-old company that has been primarily, comprised of ICE vehicles. ICE stands for internal combustible engine. Layman's terms, it runs on gas. And so that's been our forte for quite some time. And now we are pivoting in this industry to an all-electric future. And that's bigger than just the products that we make. That means that we have to have the infrastructure, right, to be able to do that locally, right? We need to have charging stations. We need to be able to educate consumers on how to interface with their vehicles now that we have, this innovation at hand. And all of that is in service to creating, when I was talking about 0 emissions and things like that, all of that is in service to creating a safer, cleaner environment, but it does require that we as human beings play a role in facilitating that change as well by changing how we behave and interact with our vehicles.
Yeah, and we can dig into some of that stuff later in the chat. Kathleen, talk us through this topic from the position of Microsoft, a fascinating role you play in the middle of all sorts of things. Can I mention the AI word, or can we have a panel without?
I'm kind of over it already.
We're going to talk about it, aren't we?
Right. I'm just worried the Wicked Witch of the West is going to come flying by. I mean, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm worried for my safety.
We've got you.
I forgot the
You were
question.
attacked by a bonsai tree, weren't you?
That's right, the bonsai tree fell on my head.
That's true.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so population growth, it's traditionally
Yeah.
seen as a stimulator for consumption, but it's no longer sustainable on its own.
Yes,
So you've got to
okay.
find a new value proposition to unlock growth and good.
Yes.
How are you doing it at Microsoft?
Yes, thank you for that. I seriously was distracted by the balloons. First of all, of the 8 billion, our customers represent.
You look concerned.
Am I the only one?
Yeah.
Well, that one's falling down. Sorry.
we're
Excuse
gonna
our
keep
distraction.
going.
We're going to
Yeah.
keep going.
Okay.
We'll soldier on.
Keep going. Sorry.
Okay, so of the 8 billion people out there, Microsoft represents. He's laughing. Microsoft customers represent 1.6 billion. We're a big share of that. So obviously we have to sort of respond to the. No one's feeling good. Jackie's nervous. Jackie's making me
That one
nervous.
has come down altogether back there.
Okay.
Lovely
Feel
chat
safe?
we're having.
We want you to
everyone.
feel safe. Does everybody feel
Does
safe?
everyone
underneath
feel
these
safe?
I don't feel safe.
No?
All right, we're gonna keep rocking and rolling.
Okay.
Okay, as long as you all feel safe.
Okay.
Talk AI.
Okay.
Tell us.
We, we may have liftoff, but
Yes.
no, let's keep going.
All right. Thank you. Let's calm down for now. Okay. So we have the luxury and the benefit of having 1.6 billion customers around the globe. So diversity, inclusion, the issues, the world issues are our issues because they're our customers' issues. And they usually are our issues early because of the scope and scale of that base. So we've been big proponents of embracing our responsibility and sustainability. And the unique role that Microsoft can play there is we can help others. Like our tools empower others to do anything. So our tools and our capabilities that we want to design to kind of monitor and improve ourselves will become leverageable for all of our customers and clients. So we want to set the best example we can. And then you have a ripple effect through the world. So we're currently in the process of looking at really efficient ways to kind of measure and scorecard. As most of us know, if we don't scorecard things, they never happen, right? So to be able to measure and scorecard the reality of the impact on the environment now, so then we can begin to assess how we change it. And it's not greenwashing. It's got to be meaningful change. And it's not the things you just think about, like, can we fly less because carbon emissions on an airplane? That's probably not the biggest problem going on. So we're in the midst of really working on that to be able to share with our customers. On the AI side, there's tons of potential. I don't even know where to go, which direction to go with AI. I think the most appropriate direction to go with AI here, even though I could go into world issues and sustainability, is its potential to amplify creativity. I think that the obvious thing for our industry is how it may help us with measurement, effectiveness, targeting, all that sort of incremental improvement that you can leverage. I think the exponential improvement potential is the role it can play in creativity. And I think at first it seems threatening. I don't know if you've been to our beach house, but at first it seems threatening where like creatives are like, is this going to take over my job? What does it mean to be a creative anymore? Like these are serious questions that, I've been around long enough to ask those too. And what we found was we asked creative teams that are involved with us around the world to create a sea creature for Can using Bing AI, Bing Image Creator. And within a week, we had 2,000 responses from creatives. But the best thing was, they didn't just respond with, here's the sea creature I created, which, by the way, those sea creatures were nothing we could create. Like, you have to have a creative sensibility and capability to be able to say, backlit, this drop shadow, blah, blah, like, I don't know that language. I don't know how to create that and iterate it. So you have to, if you want to stop by and see them, they're absolutely amazing. But the stories that were told back to us were, I didn't want to do this. I wanted to hate it. And it shift from like antipathy to joy. Like they're like, I cannot stop using it now. I love it. It's so fun. It's like made my mind open up. So that's the kind of potential I think that AI has to kind of enhance and amplify creativity.
Yeah, and we're already seeing in the awards this week some examples, and really it's really early stages, but some great examples already. But yeah, it will mechanize some of the more tedious tasks or repetitive tasks, and it will change things exponentially. Jackie, you've got a great overview across all your clients and providing support and insights for them. So talk us through where you're coming from on this topic.
Yeah, thank you. I think, first of all, we have the gift of working with amazing clients like Microsoft and General Motors. So our role as an agency is to, and Igarashi-san, our global CEO, has created a strategy that we shorthand as B to B to S, which is our commitment to help drive your business, but also drive good in society by virtue of the clients we work with. So first and foremost, we think about how do we enable the great work that they're doing through the work we do on your behalf. But equally important, as a company, we have our own sustainability targets, and we were the first holding company to actually have ours measured to the point of what's what can be measured and is truly authentic and not anything other than that is required in this space. So we're really proud of our personal goals against that, but also our commitment to B2B to S.
And how are you seeing things like AI? Where do you place that in the importance of the change you've seen throughout your career? Is it going to be as completely earth-changing and game-changing as people say?
Yeah, I think it will be. I met with a media owner yesterday that gave me another lens on it. I think Kathleen's point about it enabling creativity in a powerful way, I think is true. I think all of us should make our way to the Microsoft Beach House to see that work. But I was meeting with a media owner yesterday that is one of the most popular podcasters, and she was talking about how she's using AI to immediately translate. Oh, now we got a bird. He's afraid of the wind. To immediately translate her podcast in every other language, and it made me think how great it's going to be that our world will even get smaller and we'll understand each other better by virtue of AI enabling that kind of reach for somebody like her.
Yeah, and the key is it still needs human insight and human interaction. So talk, Brianne, about how human insights are uncovering new opportunities for good and for growth at GM. And I think we're going to play little videos as well during this segment.
Why don't we start with the video?
For sure. Tee up the GM video.
In 2020, Sarah was fighting to survive after a life-changing accident, leaving her a double amputee. The song Home Sweet by country music star Russell Dickerson giving inspiration to Sarah during her recovery. Inspired by Sarah's story, our sponsor, Chevrolet, stepped in to fulfill one of her biggest dreams.
We teamed up with Chevrolet, and we are giving you a 2021 Chevy Traverse.
The gift, a uniquely outfitted vehicle with specialized controls, giving Sarah more space, style, and added safety. Oh my God!
Chevy wants to fly you to the CMA Awards. Sarah is going to be joining me on the big stage tonight.
Tonight, Sarah will never forget. G-May at the CMAs is sponsored by Chevy Silverado, the strongest, most advanced Silverado ever.
A little bit of country.
Yeah, a little bit of country. Yeah. So, I would say a good portion of the population, even now, 16%, I believe it is, they're differently abled. So when we think about, my role, I'm tasked to think about diversity from every lens and angle. And when we think about people who are differently abled, or people who will become differently abled, which is actually all of us. At some point in time, if we're blessed enough to age to a certain point, right, we're gonna grunt when we sit and grunt when we have to get back up.
And
right?
refuse to sit on a stool.
And refuse to sit on a stool, right? So we have to think about that, right? Like when we get into cars, when we get out of vehicles, right? What does that do to our bodies? And for those that are differently abled, that's an extra care and thought. And so when we think about that, and when we think about the percent of the population that is that has to think about that more uniquely, we want to be considerate of those people groups as well. And so what you see here is an illustration of how we outfit our vehicles to be considerate of people who are differently able. And that's something that has to continue to grow because, again, this number that we're dealing with of that 8 billion, 16% and counting. So that's for perspective, and this isn't number for number, but just let me give an example of what that means, right? From an analogy standpoint. If you look at the percent of the U.S. population that is Hispanic, right?
60 million people, I think.
Yeah. If you think about that, now plus or minus, I'm not saying number for number, but that's the same from an analogy standpoint as it is people who are differently able globally. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and growing. That's significant.
Yeah.
So this is an example of how we're starting now. And by the way, that was not with an electric vehicle. That was with an ICE vehicle. So we're starting that now, and we're incorporating that now, and that's something that'll lead into the future as well.
That's great.
Very proud of that work. And I loved her surprise face. It got me every time. Like every time she'd go, I'm like, oh my goodness. It meant so much to her that we were so thoughtful in that regard, and it meant so much to us that we could connect with her in such a special way.
Yeah, definitely a part of diversity that sometimes gets ignored that's incredibly important. So, yeah, great work there. Kathleen, talk us through how that you're using human insight to uncover growth for good at Microsoft.
Well, it's interesting and it's funny. I love your example because we tend to think of groups, but really the magic is in the individual. And then that emotion and the empathy we feel is universal across any group. So then that halos to the brand. So it's about finding that kernel of truth that you can actually authentically address with your brand. And then that magic, whether it relates to you directly or not, is contagious to all people, right? Like that's the human commonality that we have. So we had an instance where, the insights role was pretty significant where, we have an issue in technology of having women represented in technology. So the baseline analysis tells you, well, you don't have enough women graduating with the right degrees from college. Okay, so we got to figure out how to get them to college. Well, no, I don't know if that's really the problem. So we kept peeling the onion. The next part of the problem is around 4th or 5th grade, we find it's not cool to be good at math and science if you're a girl. It becomes a social stigma, and they're dropping out of things like robotics and trigonometry. And so that was a deeper insight that we were able to leverage to do some work we called Girls in STEM, which is basically telling girls, don't give up. We're waiting for you. Microsoft will be there for you. I don't know if we have the videos.
Yeah, let's have a look at the video.
When I was littler, I used to think technology was great. But then I started thinking that it was more of a boys thing. Oh, you can't like science, you're a girl. Don't boys do that?
That's a boy thing. Dear Gabrielle, dear Anya, we think you'll create something great for us one day. It's just really cool that I would write a letter. It's cool.
So that's just a 30-second clip of a minute 30 spot. So it's you don't get much of it. But basically, we went to real girls in New York City public schools, and we asked them, like, do you know a scientist? And they couldn't name a woman scientist. And you can name Einstein and Tesla, and like, well, how about these women? And like, oh, we didn't know anything about them. So it continued, and it actually won a Glass Lion. And then the next year we keep peeling, right? So the crazy thing was, we asked girls, what do you want to do? I want to change the world. How are you going to change the world? I'm going to have a bake sale. I'm like, I'm going to write a social media blog. How about you're the scientist? And so girls still weren't thinking that they could be the one on the front line changing the world. So then we gave them HoloLens and showed them things like what's going on with polar bears. And like, so you have to keep going. Like these things are not like one-off and you stop. The insights unfurl. So that's what we've been doing.
Yeah, and there are some amazing mentors out there as well, senior scientists at NASA, and like you said,
yeah, and that's what we did. So the program is never a video. What we did was we used our Microsoft stores, and we did a partnership with National Geographic, and we brought in female scientists from National Geographic, and we brought in a lot of underserved communities. We did Black Girls Code, and the Boys and Girls Clubs came in to see real female scientists and what they do. He's worried you're going to fall off.
He was worried.
There's a lot of danger here. Like,
this is a very dangerous.
We're putting it on the line for you.
Dangerous
I hope you
work,
realise
folks.
that.
Let me tell you.
All right, Jacki, from your point of view, so you get that great perspective across all your clients.
Sure. Well, first of all, as a mother of two girls, thank you, because I want them to have this as a potential. And I do have a piece of work I want to highlight and show, but I want to do a shout out to Doug Rosen and Mark Prince and our incredible partners at NABOB who are here, and that is a really important aspect of what we are doing at Dentsu to make sure that we are representing our diverse media owners in a significantly different way. And we have great partners that help us do that, so it's nice to see all of you here. Thank you. The piece of work that I wanted to show off that is based on a unique human insight is to our Canadian team, Stephen Kiley, who I don't think is here this morning, and Jordan Duche, who did work to understand, like many countries, many consumers were hit at the grocery store with inflation that they had not seen before, and it was really impacting families. And in Canada, the food inflation at the grocery store was up 11%. They identified that and thought there's a way, working with our client, Skip the Express Lane, that we could actually help consumers beat that reality. And so they created an interactive cookbook called the Inflation Cookbook. It's up for many, many awards this week, so I thought I'd share the work with you here so you saw what was winning in the Palais.
It's amazing.
So cool.
Isn't that great?
Amazing.
Yeah. Hats off to the Canadian team.
So are eggs coming down finally? That's
You
the
know
big
what?
question.
You'll have to download the cookbook and move to Canada.
I will definitely do
Yeah.
that. We've got about 10 minutes left, so if anyone's got any questions, please do raise your hand. Or we can just carry on chatting up here. That's fine too. But
I usually get at least one question about how to get a discount on a vehicle. No one's brave enough here to ask.
I want that lyric.
I do too.
we've got a shy audience this morning, or maybe they're just sheltering from
They're all nervous. They're like,
all the dangers around them. Let's carry on then. So, Brianne, how can brands balance designing for individuals versus for everyone? I guess you've talked about that a little bit with the diversity part of it, but are there other ways that you're doing that as well at GM?
Well, I think finding balance with that, right? Like everybody wants personalization at scale. Everybody wants to be seen, but there are also human truths that are red thread, right? We were chatting before we, stepped up on stage, and we were chatting about our daughters and our children and all of that stuff, and what it takes to be a working mom and things like that. That's red thread stuff, and these are things that if you have those insights at the brand level that you can pull on those, you need to work through that and uncover that, because then it feels personal, but it also feels universal. And that's the secret sauce. That's what we're all working together to do, is to find that secret sauce and make it work for the brand, not just for the brand's sake, although let's be honest, sales is important, but not just for the brand's sake, but if you want to be sustainable, a sustainable brand within society today, you have to think about what are those long-lasting impacts that you can have on human beings, and you only get that from uncovering those insights.
Yeah, when I went to the New York Auto Show last time, it was such a diverse audience. How is that? And that's where the growth is coming. Talking about growth in population as well. So
100% where our growth is sourced, is from diverse audiences.
yeah. So how are you sort of using human-centric insights to cater for that audience?
Well, we have to put our money where our mouths are, first and foremost, right? We're budgeting to support. So you mentioned, NABOB, and I see some of our friends out in the audience, NABOB and AURN, and we're, from a media standpoint and from a marketing standpoint, we have allocated a share of our budget. And I say specifically a share of our budget is because when you assign a dollar amount, dollars can get cut, but share, hold, serve. So we are allocating a share of our budget to be mindful of diverse audiences, and that's Black audiences, Hispanic, Asian, LGBTQ+, differently abled audiences. We're looking for ways in which our products resonate well with those audiences, and ways that we can speak with them in an authentic voice. Those are things that are sustainable. These audiences are spurring our growth. So if we ignore them, they'll ignore us, simply put. And so we need to be, engaging with these audiences consistently. And this isn't a chair pull. This isn't a, hey, let's get our, pricing and our margins up to a certain place, and then we'll disappear and nobody will notice. Everybody will notice. This is, here we are, here we stand, and this is a lasting commitment on our behalf. And I'm so proud to work for a company that does that, because we all have worked for companies that haven't. So to be a part of one that does and stands behind that is beyond refreshing. As a person of color, I should say, I recognize the importance of it, and it's been refreshing.
Yeah, saying Mary Barrett, the CEO, really.
Oh, she's the truth.
Yeah, it's absolutely.
She is the truth.
Coming
and
from
I
the top.
appreciate her.
Kathleen, so how are you approaching that in terms of brands balancing designing for individuals versus everyone?
Yeah, as I said before, there's a kernel of individual truth, or you call the red thread, that appeals to everyone, but is unique in addressing individuals. We have a design principle at Microsoft, which is design for one, benefit many, right? So you focus on, one example is it with some of the adaptive controller work, we were designing for dexterity issues, right? So people who didn't have the manual capability. And what we found is if you're designing for someone who has a loss of a hand, what you've designed also benefits a mom with a baby on their hip and only one hand usable, right? Or someone with arthritis in one hand that can't open that package. So when you're focusing on a very specific need for a very specific individual, there tends to be a halo effect, an amplifier effect to others, and that's the principle that we use.
And Jackie, there's still a market for mass advertising to big audiences, but that's changed a hell of a lot in the past couple of decades, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has, and I think when you design for many, you design for no one. It's like in life when you try to make everybody happy, nobody's happy. So I think that Kathleen said it best early on about making sure that you're focused on the individual. We have so much technology and so much ability now to drive personalization. Our acquisition of Tag is an example of that, because that allows us to do personalization at scale for significantly less money, because we all need 6 times more content, but you don't have 6 times the budget. So there's a lot of things that agencies are doing in order to ensure that we can meet the need for personalization. And when you think about the next generations coming up, there was this next generation which was born between 2010 and 2025, so some just being born now. They are such a different generation. They're growing up in such a digitally native, socially conscious environment that they have a lot of sway in their households. So we need to think about these cohorts very, very differently. But I like the idea, think of one and benefit many. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
And the
for sure.
worry, I mean, just to continue on the theme, the worry is if we divide everybody into little pockets, you lose the commonality. Like we just had, we're different, and we just had this conversation about kids, and it's what unites us. It's what's universal. So part of what I missed, to your point about mass media opportunities being reduced, is there used to be a communal aspect to experiencing things. Like, I'm old. Who shot JR? We all watched. It's like you had like our MASH, the last episode. I'm sorry, I'm talking to like 9 people
We know what
out of
you
100
mean.
here.
Yeah.
But now all you have left really that's communal and instantaneous and mass is live sports, really.
Live events.
Because you might be watching Succession and you may be watching, but we're not watching it the same. We'll talk about it later.
And Succession was fascinating because many watched the final episode when it happened, and then you go to a party and somebody would say, "Don't talk about it. I've not watched it yet."
I was just about to say, don't talk about it.
Hey, don't talk about it. You haven't watched it yet.
But
So
it's
we all
nowhere near
knew
the
who shot
scale.
JR at
Even
the same
Succession
time.
at its height is nowhere near the scale that we used to have. So I kind of, part of me wants to say, look, part of the beauty of communication has been connection, not separation. So I want to make sure that, I think that's where the emotion comes in, that generally there's an emotion or values that are connecting, not separating. So
And I just to add to that, like, I think we relegated everything at one point in time to like an awareness driving, like get your name out there and da 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 da, and mass media. But when you're talking about pulling that thread through, you can't. That's not gonna. We need to make sure that we're having other touch points to make sure that we're communicating that. So it's not that it's dead and gone away, but how we use it strategically has to manifest.
Our mass media partners, too, have done a great job of integrating. NBCU is a great example for us, where we've integrated our data with theirs, where it allows us to do things where you're still absolutely dealing in mass audiences, but you are much more thoughtful about how you're communicating.
Yep.
I think there's less of that universal content draw, though. There's less of like, we're all watching something.
Right.
I do recall in my part of Brooklyn, there was a watch party for the last episode of Breaking Bad, but I guess that's Brooklyn.
That might have been the last one.
Man. Bring those back.
All right, so let's finish with a quick fire round. I'll start with you on this one, Jackie. We've got 3 questions for you all. One pitfall to be wary of in the next era of marketing.
My pitfall would be, and this is sort of a topic that we all talk too much about but haven't solved, is how we get our office culture back with the hybrid working. I worry about our young people. I so worry about our young people that are missing the culture that we all grew up with and the value of apprenticeship that just happens by the pace of the hallways. I think there's great things that come from hybrid, but I'm worried about our youngest employees.
Yeah, learning by being in the environment, in the thick of
My
it.
average age is 28 for my employees, so they're all young. Yeah.
How about you, Kathleen?
Math. I'm worried that math is going to suck the life out of creativity.
Yeah, you've
Being
got
too analytical.
That's getting back to the topic, isn't it, with human insights being important to take that data and take that information and make creativity out of it.
If
And great.
machines could make creative and math could make everything better, none of us would be needed.
Okay, Brianne.
I would say underestimating the power of a pivot. Being reluctant to change that's a death for a brand.
Yeah.
So
Power of the pivot. That's
Power of the pivot. Put
All
it on
right,
a
then,
t-shirt.
Brianne, technological innovation with the greatest ability to unlock human potential.
Well, I mean, I think we talked about, dare I say the two letters
Yes, you
again?
may.
AI, I think, is something that we all should keep at the forefront.
That's Kathleen's answer.
I
There's
know.
no other what other
I know,
answers there?
I know.
Self-driving
Next
cars?
question.
I don't know.
Well, self-driving cars.
I'll give your answer, you give mine.
Yeah, I gave her answer, she gave mine. Self-driving cars is definitely on the docket.
All right, Jackie, any?
I'm gonna take away the technology aspect of it. I think I shared this on Sunday with a pair of clients, and they didn't feel this way. So I'll start there. But I think that marketing, CMOs, chief growth officers, chief brand officers, whatever they're called in our brand companies, I think they have more power and more impact than they've ever had. And I think that is super encouraging for our industry. I think that they have taken the math in many ways, but they have demonstrated the importance of the craft that we are here celebrating in driving growth. And I think that the CEOs are getting it, and I get very encouraged by that.
It's the CFOs we got to work on.
Let's work on them. Let's work on them.
And finally, a slightly jocular one. I'll start with Kathleen on this. Generative AI, the start of the end of the universe, or the future of humanity?
Oh, the future of humanity. I mean, when you look at what AI's potential is to address the world's biggest problems, healthcare, cancer, illnesses, feeding people, optimizing yields of crops, it's unbelievable.
Okay, folks. Thank you, Brianne. Thank you, Kathleen and Jackie. Please give them a round of applause.
Thanks, guys.
We survived.